He retired on a Friday, and on Monday morning, he did the most radical thing in modern American finance. Nothing. He poured his coffee, watered his tomatoes, and never once opened an app to check what the market did overnight. Because it didn't matter. Ray worked 41 years at one company and on the first of every month. The same $3,200 lands in his account whether the market's on fire or on the floor. His daughter Kara works at that same company now. She was lying in bed refreshing a balance on her phone, watching $4,000 evaporate while she was supposed to be asleep. Same family, same building, same work ethic. One of them got a check for life, the other got a second unpaid job as her own personal pension fund manager, and nobody asked if she wanted it. Because I promise you, it wasn't the crash you think it was. Retirement in America is booming. And I mean the numbers genuinely look incredible. Vanguard just put out its annual report where it X-rays the real accounts of nearly 5 million people, and it found that a record 86% of workers are now putting money into their retirement plans. 25 years ago, that was closer to 65%. The average savings rate hit an all-time high of about 12%, and the average account balance climbed to around $168,000. So on paper, the machine is working. Everybody's saving, everybody's participating, except that $168,000 average is doing something sneaky. See, the average adds everyone's balance together and divides by the number of people, which means it gets yanked upward by a small group of folks sitting on enormous piles of money. It's like if you and I are standing in an empty room and Jeff Bezos walks in. On average, the three of us are worth about $70 billion each. You look at the median, the person standing dead center, exactly as many people above them as below. And the median retirement balance is not $168,000, it's about $44,000. That's not a typo. The typical American is sitting on roughly a quarter of what the cheerful headline promised. Between the story and the statement is the whole video. So let's answer the actual question. And the answer is going to annoy you, because it didn't happen this year. It happened in 1978, and you're only feeling it now. Here's the thing almost nobody knows. The 401k was an accident. It was never designed to be the thing your entire old age hangs on. Back in 1978, Congress passed a boring tax bill, and buried in it was a little subsection numbered 401k meant to let executives defer a slice of their bonuses from taxes. That's it. That was the whole ambition. Then a benefits consultant named Ted Benna was messing around with that subsection in 1980 and realized you could use it to build a workplace savings plan where regular employees kicked in their own money. He later said he thought it would be a nice little supplement, a garnish, a side dish next to the main course, which back then was the pension. And that's the part that matters. Because your grandparents' retirement wasn't a side dish. Raise isn't either. It's a pension, a defined benefit, which is a fancy way of saying the company promised him a specific check for life and the company carried all the risk of making that promise come true. If the market crashed, that was the company's problem. If Ray lived to 103 out of pure spite, that was the company's problem. In 1980, almost 4 in 10 private sector workers had one of these. Today, it's closer to 1 in 10, and most of those are teachers, cops, and government workers. It got deleted, and the accidental little side dish got promoted to the entire meal. And here's what actually happened to your account. Nobody sat you down and explained that a job had quietly changed hands. It takes people who understand market cycles, who calculate how long thousands of humans will live, who decide exactly how much to set aside and when to move it somewhere safe. That entire job got laid off and handed to you. Unpaid, untrained, on top of your actual job, the actuary and the risk department for a single client whose whole retirement depends on you not screwing it up between your kids' dentist appointments. So let me show you the 3 risks that got dumped in Kara's lap, because this is where it stops being abstract and starts being terrifying. The first one is called sequence of returns risk, and it's the quiet assassin of retirements. Picture 2 people who both retire on the exact same day with the exact same $500,000, both planning to pull out $40,000 a year to live on. The only thing different between them is timing. The first guy retires straight into a crash. His 500,000 drops to 300 almost overnight, and he still has to pull his 40,000 out to eat, so now he's selling shares at the bottom just to buy groceries. 300 becomes 240, 240 becomes 180, and the account never gets a chance to heal, because every single year he's carving another chunk out of a shrinking pile. He's flat broke by 78. The second person retires into a couple of calm years first, watches her account drift up to 600,000 before the identical crash ever lands, rides it out, and dies with more than she started with. Same 500,000, same average return, same spending. The only difference was which years showed up first, something neither of them chose and neither of them could see coming. Kara's neighbor learned this the hard way, retiring in early 2008, selling into the teeth of it, and unretiring back to a job at 70. When Ray had a pension, this risk simply did not exist for him. You'll never feel the hand in your pocket. Fees, a fee sounds harmless. Somebody says your fund charges 1% and your brain goes, rounding error. Here's why that's the most expensive shrug of your life. That 1% doesn't come out once. It comes out every year off your entire balance for 40 years, including on all the growth you'd have earned. Run the math on a career of saving, and a 1% fee can quietly eat roughly a quarter of your final nest egg. You sweated every crash, and a quarter of the reward walks out the door to pay for management. This just erodes you in total silence. And the third risk is the most human one, and honestly the most unfair to blame people for. It's behavior. There's a research firm called Dow that does this study every year, comparing what the average investor actually earns versus what their own funds earned. And year after year, the investor loses to their own investments. The market drops 20%, your brain screams that this time it's different. Hardship withdrawals, where people yank money out of their 401k early and eat the penalty just to survive an emergency. On its current path, the main Social Security trust fund is projected to run short around the year 2033, which the company guaranteed became the 401k, which you guarantee. And the backup, which the government guaranteed, is now flashing a maybe. Ray's generation got the pension and the Social Security check both, belt and suspenders. Kara's being handed a needle and told to sew her own belt, and just sort of hope the suspenders are still there in 2033. The floor keeps quietly getting moved down a level, and the memo keeps not getting sent. That's a sale. You've got 30 plus years of buying ahead of you, and every share the crash marks down, you're in the dangerous middle, old enough to have a real balance to lose, and if you're in your late 50s or 60s. That sequence of returns assassin we just met, there is no red number at all. Not because they're calm, because there's no account. You have to fund yourself. An enormous number of people simply never got the resources to start the project. And that's the part that should make all of us stop treating this like a personal failing. What actually happened is quieter and more unsettling. A whole series of reasonable sounding decisions made by a lot of different people over 40 years, each one defensible on its own, added up to an entire nation being handed a job. They just very politely handed you the wheel of a bus doing 70 and went to sit in the back. And the reason I'm obsessed with how this machine works is that once you can see the wheels in your hands, the employer match. If your company matches your contributions and you're not putting in enough to grab all of it, you are turning down a 50 to 100% instant return on your money. Say Kara earns $60,000 and her company matches the first few percent she puts in. That's a couple $1,000s a year of somebody else's money, free, that she either takes or leaves on the table. Next, go hunt down your fees, because remember, that's the quiet quarter walking out the door. Then automate your contributions and turn on the setting that bumps them up by 1% every year. If you happen to be over 50, the tax code lets you throw in thousands extra every year in catch-up contributions. So think back to Ray, drinking his coffee, gloriously not caring what the market did overnight, and Kara, wide awake, watching a number bleed. And the exact same redesign that dumped all this risk onto her also handed her a set of controls Ray never got. And if she starts young and automates the boring stuff, she can end up at 70 doing the exact thing her dad does now, pouring her coffee, watering her tomatoes, ignoring the market on purpose, except the number she gets to ignore is bigger than any pension ever promised him, and every dollar of it is hers. What happened to your retirement account wasn't the crash. It was a job that got handed to you in 1978 without so much as an email. And the good news, the only news that actually matters, is that once you know you're holding the wheel, you get to decide where the bus goes. That's the whole game. If you want the playbook for building income you actually own, I'll see you in the next one.